Hi, this is Clint Kennedy with RG Nets. I'm the head of sales and solution architects. And with me, I've got my senior solution architect, Alec Murray. And we're going to be talking about the control plane portion of the rXg today. So we already kind of, may or may not have touched on this. The control plane is essentially the platform that is going to handle all of the clustering type things, the various things that we're going to be going through in terms of subscriber provisioning, things like that on the control plane side. So that's what we're going to be talking about here. And just a quick review of that as well. We also have the data plane and the control plane, data plane, and the gosh, I'm trying to blank. Management plane. Thank you. Portions that we're going to be going through at some point in a follow-up session. So subscriber self-provisioning. This is something we're actually going to go through as a demo as well. So the ability for a user to be able to connect to the network, fill out their own credentials, potentially select a billing plan if you want billing integration as well. You don't have to do billing integration. Put in a credit card if you want to do that. Again, that's optional. You don't have to do that. And be able to essentially choose their own plan, choose their own tier of offering, and get connected to the network. We're showing this in the capacity of with the billing integration. So think of like a multi-dwelling unit, a hotel, something along those lines, maybe a convention center, airport, some sort of LPV. But in addition to that, we have a whole sponsored guest workflow for networks where, in an enterprise network where a guest might connect and need to connect to the Wi-Fi. And maybe there's there's a list of users that are authorized to allow that person. They would get an email address, they would get emailed to say, hey, so-and-so just signed up for the service. Do you want to approve them? Yes, no, go ahead and connect them to the network. And then that person then gets onto the network with the credentials that they chose. So that type of workflow is available as well. SMS validation, email validation, temporary access while those are being validated. Show an ad for a little bit, show a video for a little bit. All these things are journeys that can be built out in this solution. We also provide the ability for venues to manage themselves. So one of the things we're going to be talking about is our front office manager. The front office manager is the ability for, it's kind of right there in the name, the front office to manage the network. We have a very robust GUI with a ton of nerd knobs in the default admin interface. For the front office manager, we've really stripped it down to just show things that are pertinent to a typical non-technical person that needs to disconnect, reconnect rooms, change billing plans, provide refunds, look at information about devices, things like that. In addition to that, we have a tool called Conference Portal that we're going to be talking about briefly as well. Conference Portal is an event planning portal that can actually take command and control of the wired and wireless infrastructure, change SSIDs, spin them up on demand, tie those networks and those service networks to the actual wired ports as well so that you're on the same VLAN, allow users to actually specify what they want their SSID name to be, what the pre-shared key is, if they want to cap to portal or not, as well as tie that to a billing type service as well. So if you want to actually charge for that, then you can do that too, as well as set different tiers of offerings in that. Number of concurrent devices, any type of policy that we normally have can be tied to that. And then we also have custom operator portals that we'll be touching on at a later point as well. So the custom front office manager, again, is really designed to allow users to, front desk workers, to be able to connect, make day-to-day changes, and provide changes to the network that are, again, a little more trivial. So things that you don't want your IT staff to have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So room changes can be dynamic as well, but things like that. Changing plans. Enhanced location-based services. This is a operator portal service as well. So we can actually provide things on the map like points of interest, show where you actually are located, We can tie this into an app or a web page that is served to the end user to show them where they're actually located at any given time. Can also show where other users in their party are located. An admin would be able to have access to say, show me, XYZ device. I believe there was a location-based question earlier in terms of if you've got RFID tags, that could show up here as well for staff. That could be put in a group that everyone in the staff policy has access to. The hospital staff policy has access to. In addition, I like to think of this very similar to a kiosk in like a mall or something, where you get an interactive kiosk at the mall that shows the map, show me where all the bathrooms are, and it'll put all the bathrooms on the map. The difference being that instead of, it's saying you are here and you're staring at this thing that doesn't move, now it's in your hand, it's on your phone, and it updates your movements as you move around to make sure that you started walking in the right direction.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So as part of this, and I see we have the maps and we're drawing things out, am I putting the access point locations in here?
Yes.
All right. So if I already have something like this inside of DNA Center, as you mentioned Cisco earlier, does that mean I have to do that twice? I have to do that inside of DNAC, and then I have to do that inside of here as well?
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when you're deriving that information out of to do that location based, are you querying DNAC to get the information about what the client, what access point they've been on, doing the triangulation of where they're at, or are you somehow doing that in some other way?
Depends on the APs and the manufacturer, but yeah, we're able to actually process that locally as opposed to getting it from the manufacturer. Some manufacturers we do integrate with to pull that data from.
Right.
It just depends on the manufacturer. So.
Well, okay. So does that mean that you're querying the access points directly,
or the controller?
Or the controller directly? Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
I wanted to add on to that too. When you talked about management of the wireless network, including being able to have that front office manager create the SSIDs and change PSKs and that kind of thing. Do you have the ability to leverage APIs into those other controller solutions? Because you're not running the controller itself.
Correct.
You're pushing the commands through API. Okay.
It really depends on the manufacturer.
On the manufacturer.
So we're either using SNMP API or actually running shell commands. It just depends on the manufacturer and also depends on the command that we're trying to run.
We're also getting information from radius accounting at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, because we're in this model of everything talks to everything, then we have information about, this AP has authenticated this user and this user is actively connected to that device.
Okay.
So we have that information as well.
So then when somebody goes to deploy this, and let's say they're a Cisco enterprise shop and they've got, the new Catalyst access points all over the place and the Catalyst controllers, you all have already gone through and you have an interface, a plugin, whatever it is, that's already written.
Correct.
And so you go into your RGNet's platform and say, all right, I need to activate this for New Age Cisco, or if it's Juniper. So it's not, I understand what you're saying, that there's different ways, different vendors, but you've already pre-programmed in there.
Right.
You've got a list, and I would pick off the list and turn on whoever it is.
We're gonna show that later too. We
Yep.
we abstract that where the vendor doesn't necessarily matter, so we're gonna show that later on in one of the demos.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and that's also why we didn't talk about that too much when we were talking about the portion earlier on the portal side and on the conference portal tool. So, but that is coming up in a later slide. I know. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
So we offer encrypted 802.1x SSIDs or pre-shared key SSIDs. Obviously pre-shared key. We're going to talk a little bit more about why we're highlighting pre-shared key in particular. But we do support .1x, a WPA2 enterprise SSIDs with full LDAP integration, Radius proxy. We have a built-in Radius server as well on the system. And you can also have a full user database.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, because just for the insecure network stuff, dealing with the stupid splash pages that. Thank God to the writers of neverssl.com, by the way, because that helps me out a lot of times. But yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Good to see.
Perfect.
Pleased to see that.
Yeah, no, it never SSL. Like, I love that at some point they're like, we need to start adding like a jumble to
random-
yeah, for the people that are using it so regularly. Yes, so rather than just MAC-based authentication, we have actual authentication on our system. We also do port-based authentication with .1x as well. We can do MAC auth as well on an open SSID, actually really any SSID. So we can combine a policy. So we can also put a captive portal on any SSID. So it could still be a pre-shared key SSID, and it would be the same portal experience that you get on wired or wireless. And we combine all these things as well. Comprehensive PMS integration. For some reason, I thought my next slide, I'm sorry, was PSK. So I'm just going to talk more, go back real quick. I apologize. Multiple pre-shared key is something we're going to be talking about as well. So another service that we provide and have really pushed in the market is the concept of multiple pre-shared key, which is very similar to .1x, except there's no certificate, obviously. But in terms of actual usability and security for end user devices, and if it's managed properly, you can actually get pretty good security out of that as well. Far better than an open SSID or captive portal or MAC-based solution. And we can still get it down to an pre-shared key down to an individual device, user, group of users, whatever you want. And also mix and match anywhere they're in. And because .1x doesn't work on every single system, then that's one of the things that we really like about pre-shared multiple pre-shared key, dynamic pre-shared key, EPSK, DPSK, IPSK, EDPSK, whatever you might have heard it as. PPSK, I think that's one I forgot. But that capability allows, again, dumb devices to be connected to the network securely, as well as provide them a policy, as well as get them into the correct zone, VLAN, et cetera. So we can still do that in a secure manner as well. Comprehensive PMS integration. So a property management system at a hotel, MDU are very common. Sometimes LPVs have them as well. We have full integration support for those types of devices and systems as well. We have some of these features actually built into our product, but it's more for when you don't have a PMS rather than to run it as your PMS. So we can still get some of those features and capabilities that are, or the workflows that we have built in, still in place when a PMS integration is not available. But this will allow you to tie, things like, room number, last name. We can actually tie that to a pre-shared key. We can tie that to a 802.1x policy as well. So your room number and your last name are now your username and your password. Or in a multiple pre-shared key scenario, that's your actual pre-shared key, a combination. We actually have taken it as far as to jumble it up on the pre-shared key side to scramble it 12 different ways. So we can do, because pre-shared key is case sensitive, matters what order you put it in, all those things, right? If you've got spaces or not. We've actually pre-calculated a number of those possibilities so that you're, again, getting a lot fewer calls to help desk. And we've tied that to a QR code as well, so you can just scan that.
You said you calculated it 12 different ways. So just so
I just threw out a number 12. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. You can check additional.
I got you. So like if I put my room number and then my last name, and your format is supposed to be last name and then room number,
Exactly.
You're able to just like, okay,
Caps,
you did.
lowercase,
Yeah,
all the combinations.
I got you.
With a space, without a space, but yes, exactly like you're describing.
Gotcha.
So it could be anywhere they're in. That's correct.
Saving.
But it's configurable as well, so you can turn on which ones you want. So yeah.
That's cool.
Correct.
Sorry.
Or
I'm going to switch it over to Alec.
if you had, just to expand on that, if you had something like a loyalty number that was available, we can use that as well. So that's
Go look it up.
more like something you have, there's a lot of, like airlines, for example, might ask for a loyalty number when you're buying the internet there. We can integrate that into the billing as well. So it doesn't have to be room number, last name. If you're afraid that might be too guessable, we can throw something there that only the user would have. And I'm Alec Murray, by the way. I'm a solutions architect for RGNets. I'm going to show kind of the onboarding process that Clint touched on a few minutes ago. So I'm showing my lab rXg here. This is the admin interface. But the first thing I want to show is actually from my iPad. So I'm going to connect over and just show my iPad and show you, I guess, one of the problems that we're trying to solve. You can see there's a lot of SSIDs here. So we're really trying to move things down to a single SSID. Unfortunately, two of these SSIDs are mine. One of them is the Start Here SSID, and this is an AP that I brought with me that is tunneled back to the lab you just saw. And as soon as I connect to it, I get a captive portal that pops up. We'll give it a second to load with the internet speed. And on this captive portal, I have the basic information that you would see in an MDU. So, or in a mixed use or multi-tenant. But you'll see this a lot in a multi-dwelling unit like apartment complexes. Maybe not even the free access. This portal is completely skinnable, completely customizable, and you can do that all from the GUI. We have the portal modifications right there available. We'll look at that here in a second. And in this case, if I don't have an account, so let's say I've just moved into an apartment and I want to buy access, it's very easy to do. I can just click create account. And this was one of the screenshots you saw earlier in Clint's. I can select my plan. Let's say I want a standard plan. If I'm a gamer, I may want to add on universal plug and play. So that would allow, the port forwarding to happen for my Xbox or my PlayStation or whatever I'm going to use. Now, I already have an account signed up here, but in this case, it would be a free, maybe with the add-on. You put in your billing information. The billing is all done from the rXg itself, so from the system itself. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to log in with the account that I already have, that I've already paid for. Don't steal my password, if I can remember it.
Same combination for my luggage.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Password 123. It's a secret. So this is what we call the virtual residential gateway. So when any user logs in, whether you're inside the network or outside the network, if you decide to present that portal to the open world, this is what a user would see when they sign up, when they sign in. So think of it, everyone here lives somewhere, right? If you live in an apartment or a home, you've probably all bought service at some time from an ISP where they have to roll a truck out, they have to pull a box out of the car, they have your ONU, your ONT, your cable modem. They're calling that MAC address or serial number in, then they have to activate that in the database and you have to wait 20 minutes and they plug it up, then maybe it works, right? So we're trying to solve that problem, not just from an MDU space, but from an ISP space. It's an ISP problem as well because that's a lot of hands touching a lot of stuff. So if the devices are cheap enough to leave in a home, or if in an MDU, if they already have access points, or if they have their ONUs, ONTs, cable modems, whatever in the apartments, then you can allow users to sign up, wired or wireless in the same way. I'm using wireless in this case. It would be no different if we're using 802.1x. So on the VRG, I can see how many hours I've used. This is just my virtual residential gateway, by the way, just a reminder. This would be the basic overview. I can also see devices. So if I have a browserless device, for example, then this would be where I can add a new MAC address. We even have instructions there how to find the MAC address on a multitude of devices. But again, if you notice up the top right, it still says cancel. So I don't have internet access yet. This is just a portal into my virtual residential gateway. So down at the bottom here, this is where we get into getting rid of the open networks, right? Moving to secure networks. So I also have a second SSID here. It's called residence. And on this residence SSID, I'm using multiple pre-shared key, MPSK, PPSK, IPSK, depending on which vendor it is. In this case, it would be DPSK through Ruckus, and it is using radius authentication. So it's not just DPSK, right? It's eDPSK, or external dynamic pre-shared key. Most of the vendors out there that are implementing PPSK are also now implementing the external authentication, the radius version. There are a few holdouts, but as PPSK becomes more popular or IPSK or MPSK, we call it multiple pre-shared key because it's just more generic since everybody else has their own name for it. So I can also see I've been assigned an IP range. So we're going to look at that here in a second, and I'm going to try to move a little bit more. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to try to find that residence. Well, maybe. So as I join the residence network, it is checking radius. It's going out and making sure that my pre-shared key matches my account, or in a better word, it's looking for whose account that pre-shared key matches. And then it's doing a lot of stuff on the back end. So we saw earlier the IP address that it had assigned me. My IP address is 10.0.23.2. In this case, it's a /24, so it's a Class C network. I have 250 some IPs that I can use there, and I'm going to jump back over to my laptop and try to show you what just happened. So I'm going to go to device sessions. And then there's the device that I just connected. Okay, so it's been on for less than 1 second there, but it's been on for about a minute now. And then the device before that is the device where I was on the onboarding network. So it shows me both. And if I jump over to interface assignments, you can see that it's given me a VLAN tag, what we call VTAs or VLAN tag assignment. So, but that is just a demo of what we're trying to do to reduce truck rolls, to make things a lot more smoother and to promote secure networks instead of open networks.
And one of the things you may have seen on his screen was if you clicked on the SSIDs, you know, is this just wall of SSIDs.
Yeah.
Like imagine living in a dorm or an MDU or, you know, going to this hotel and you're like, what SSID am I supposed to connect to? You know, first of all, your average user can't spell SSID, right? They're like, which wireless network do I connect to, right? And they're like, here's your pre-shared key. What's that? I'm sorry. Like, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Oh, we put it on a QR code.
That's why you put it on a QR code. That's
Right.
right. Yeah, that's one of the reasons you put it on a QR code. But in a large public venue, having that many SSIDs is detrimental to the health of the wireless as well. So, you know, all those things are beaconing at the lowest data rate possible, and it's eating up a ton of airtime. In a large public venue, airtime is your most precious resource. You know, so doing anything you can to reduce the number of SSIDs you have is going to improve wireless performance. In places where the wireless isn't, you know, as demanding, are you really going to see an improvement that's, you know, that marginal? I don't know. In a large public venue, absolutely. Like it's demonstrable, and there is it's a good 25% that could easily get eaten up and growing depending on the number of SSIDs you have.
Sure.
So.